In many ways, a sales team is like a very complex piece of machinery. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. We could spend a lot of time just listing what those things are. And it's just like a very complex piece of equipment. But listen, there's one thing that sales leaders don't do consistently that's absolutely killing your sales. And coming up next, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about how to solve the problem. This is Sales Untraining, a very different kind of sales podcast. 3 out of 4 salespeople are failing. They're falling short of their revenue. Why doesn't sales training work? That's what this sales podcast is about. It's your weekly sales strategy guide designed to rewire your sales brain. Welcome to Sales Untraining. I'm Kelly Riggs. It is your weekly sales strategy guide designed to completely rewire your sales brain as we talk about what's wrong with sales training. That's a long answer. A lot of things are wrong with it. But today we're going to talk a little bit about something a bit different, and that is the one thing that sales leaders don't do, absolutely killing sales. And I see it consistently. I mean, it's overwhelming how often I observe this going on. And when I ask about it, I get a very consistent answer. What's the one thing people aren't doing? Sales leaders aren't doing? They don't work with their salespeople. No, hang with me. When I say work with them, I don't mean like in the office and, we're looking at reports together and we're having conversations in the hallway. I'm talking about making calls together. When I first started in the world of sales management, I mean, it was a given. One of the few things that I was told I had to do, you've got to get out and ride with your reps. They were called ride-alongs, right? I had to schedule individual salespeople to go out and spend time with them making calls. What's the one reason sales leaders don't do it? Surely you've got this one figured out. Exactly. I don't have time. The corporation, my corporate leaders, they pile so much responsibility on me. I'm the CRM guru. I'm the budget guy. I'm the, market intelligence guy. I coordinate with marketing. I do all of these various things, and I'm in meetings like forever. I'm meeting guy too. So Kelly, exactly when am I going to get out and spend time with reps? Listen, this is not optional. All right, let me tell you why it's not optional. I saw this over and over as a sales manager, very, very young sales supervisor. I was called a district manager at the time. I had 5 reps and I actually worked a partial territory as well. Eventually got promoted out to regional manager, all management responsibilities. But I'd go out and work with individuals that were part of my district, and they would tell me as we drove down the street, oh, those guys, they're a great account. Oh, they're going to be a client soon. They're hot. They're ready to roll. These guys, absolutely amazing. Right? Oh, had 3 calls with those guys in the past 2 weeks. I think we're getting close. I mean, to listen to these guys, they were crushing it. Been there? And then you look down at the sales numbers and go, what's wrong with this picture? Hey, hang on. If you've got all of this activity going and all of these people think you are something else, why are you 80% of plan halfway into the year? I don't quite get it. And so I'd push a little bit and we'd have some conversations, and come to find out, you start digging a little bit, not so much. But you know how I was able to validate not so much? I was on the calls with them. Because when they told me these individuals, these companies, these current clients or prospects are ready to go and they're doing well, we're going to go make a call on them. So I would set it up. Hey, last time we talked about these individuals, love to go make a call, set this up. When I come and ride with you for a day and a half, I want to be dead tired when we're done. I want you to have to pour me into the taxi to send me to the airport. Yeah, I know, showing my age, the Uber, the Lyft, whatever. Or maybe that rep was just taking me there. Happened a lot. But it's amazing what I found out when I actually rode with the salesperson and observed sales calls. Here's my question. How do you know what's going on if you're not spending time in the field making calls? Now, listen, pause, because some of you are like, hey, I'm on the floor. We're a SaaS company, and I'm in around my reps on a consistent basis. I know what's going on. In fact, I actually listen in on some of their calls, or I review the video, the recording, so I have a pretty good idea. Well, hang on to that thought, because I'm not altogether sure that's true, and I'll tell you why in a bit as we talk about how you go about approaching this and how you solve it. But how in the world do you know what's going on? First, here's the thing you got to lock into. Your salespeople are practicing on your prospects, on your customers. They're practicing there, because if you're not working with them, if you're not role play practicing, if you're not taking them through actual practice calls, you have no idea what they're doing. And let me assure you, they're never going to say, wow, I kind of stink at this, right? I'm not that good on the prospecting side. I don't know how to open a call. Boy, when they ask some questions, I get flustered. You're going to get none of that. You're going to get a lot of red roses, sunshine. It's all good. Things are going well. Look at my CRM report. I've got $1 billion ready. Yes, of course you do. That's why you're 80% of plan. How do you coach if you don't know what needs to be coached? Let me tell you what happens typically. Someone's 80% of plan, I'm going to make an assumption I know what's going on. Well, they're not asking for the order, so they need to work on closing, or they're not handling objections well, or maybe the margins are compressing and we're not selling value. Hey, you need to sell value. That's not coaching. Telling someone what they need to do or what to do is not coaching. And if you're not out there live watching them do it, they are not going to admit what they're doing wrong. I mean, why would they? I mean, we're all human beings. We don't want to say, hey, I kind of stink at this. It's not going to work that way. And so the one thing that I consistently see sales leaders do is they're spending way too much time behind a computer monitor at a desk and not nearly enough time involved with them actually making calls that matter. So what should you be doing? Even if you're on the floor looking at some calls, hearing some calls, reviewing some recordings, what should you be doing? Well, one of the things you need to be talking about is what happens before the call. When I would work in the field with a salesperson, we'd pull in the parking lot and they'd get ready to get out. Stop, pause. Why are we here? I mean, at first they'd look at me like, I'm sorry, excuse me, what? Why are we here? Well, Kelly, we're going in to see Joe and, we're going to sell something. That's your objective, to sell something. Well, I mean, eventually, okay, so what's the objective of this call? Every call is different. A brand new prospecting call, a discovery call, a follow-up call, a presentation call, all kinds of different types of calls. I want to know what the objective is. In 1984, I worked for a guy that came out and worked with me on a regular basis when I knew zero. I did not know anything about selling. I mean, I was an open book. And that's where I learned this. He would get me, to the door and he'd go, okay, stop. What's our primary objective? And after a while, I finally figured out what he was asking for. And then he would go, okay, what's your secondary objective? Say what? Secondary objective? And he'd walk me through that. And then he had the, what happens if it all goes to crap objective? I'm like, okay, I'll bite. What does that mean? Have you ever been on a call where the guy you're supposed to meet, the prospect, the customer, the individual you're meeting with, can't make it, doesn't show up, for some reason is detained? Listen, it costs a lot of money to make a sales call. What are you going to do then? He forced me to think through the process of being prepared. Now that's coaching. And it's one of the things that if you do routinely, you get people into the habit. Pretty soon they're saying, okay, hang on a second. Let me tell you why we're here, who we're seeing, what our objectives are. I'm going to ask things like, have you qualified them? What qualifying factors do we not know? Where are we in the sales process? Do you understand the customer buying journey? Do you know how they buy and what they expect from us? Have we identified gaps in performance? Do we know who the players are? Who can influence the sale? And on and on and on it goes. You're not riding with your salespeople? That's not happening. All right. Now, what do you do inside the sales call? Well, we've got to determine what the rules of engagement are. Now, a lot of sales managers, salesperson starts to stumble, they jump in, they take over, they finish the thing out. Not always the best idea. Sometimes, and I know this is going to make your head spin, but sometimes people need to go through the process of messing it up or struggling or even failing so that they can learn effectively. But the way you handle that is to determine the rules of engagement before we go in. Listen, this is your call. You open it up. You introduce me. If you get to a point where you need my input, let me know. I'm the big boss from afar, so to speak. I've just come in to see how things are going, shake hands, thank people for their business. Or it might be this client wants to talk to the big boss from afar. You're running the call. You're going to interact. You're going to ask questions above my pay grade and intersect with them. And this is a way for us to build a relationship outside of the salesperson with a large account. That's a different set of engagement rules. Well, the other one might be, listen, let's just pitch it back and forth. You cover this, I'll cover that. Listen, I don't care how you do it. Just agree. There's nothing worse than looking like Barnum and Bailey's circus routine inside of a sales call. Buyers, prospects, they shake their head and they think, this is amateur hour. They want to work with professionals. Be professional. So that's number 2. Number 3, listen, it's what happens after the call. And this is what my old boss in 1984 used to call curbside coaching. We'd come out, sit in the car, and he'd say, okay, fantastic. Tell me what went well. What do you think really went well in that call? What did you do that you liked? And we would focus on the positives first. Always appreciated that about him. I mean, he helped me get better over and over, but he made me feel good about the progress that I was making. And then he would ask questions along the way. Did you hear when he said this? Did you see this document on his desk? He was big on keen observation. What's going on around the buyer? He would say, I noticed that when they said this, you went this direction. Tell me about that. What was your thought process? He's forcing me to think through how I manage a sales call. And there were times when I didn't go well, right? Didn't go as like we'd want it to. I mean, I was a 24-year-old kid just getting started. And then he would say, hey, listen, I've got a couple of ideas that I think might be valuable. Would you like for me to share those with you? Absolutely. But notice how he's treating me. He's not treating me like somebody who's dumb as a box of rocks and needs to be directed and, he's very disappointed in. Hey, I've got some ideas. Would it be okay to share those with you? That's how you treat an adult. And he made me feel that way, even though he was 30 years my senior. Fantastic sales manager. And I learned a lot from him. But that's the kinds of things that happen when you work with a salesperson on calls in the field or even in the office. You can do the same program, prep for the call. Now it's your call. I'm not involved unless you are. And then after the call, let's talk about it. What happened? What went right? What went wrong? What would you do differently? But instead of telling them what to do, we're asking them what to do. Make sense? All right, coming up next, we'll put a bow on it. And I'll tell you one other thing you absolutely need to do when you work with your sales representatives. I'm Kelly Riggs, host of the Sales Untraining podcast. A couple of quick questions for you. Do you hire salespeople? Is sales turnover far too high in your organization? Do you struggle to find A players for your sales team? Well, these are very common questions, and there is a better way to hire. I'm a partner with Objective Management Group, OMG, and they have been assessing sales candidates for over 30 years. In fact, they've assessed over 2.5 million salespeople. Now, this is a very different type of assessment. First thing out of your mind is it another behavioral assessment? Is it a psychometric tool? Is it a personality quiz? No, nothing like that. It is based on 21 very specific sales competencies. And you need to listen to this. This is crazy. It is 91% predictive of sales performance. That's right, 91% predictive. You can't even make a claim like that without the science behind it. Listen, if you struggle to find the right people, or if you just need a lot more help in the hiring process and making sure you're getting in front of the right people to hire, please email me, Kelly@bizlockerroom.com. Oh, by the way, and you can absolutely try it for free, and it has a guarantee. Kelly at bizlockerroom.com. Back to the show. Welcome back. This is Sales Untraining, and I'm Kelly Riggs. Hey, I hope you like the podcast. If you do, I hope you'll like the podcast and subscribe. And even more importantly, I hope you'll share it with someone that you think needs to be in on the conversation. What's wrong with sales training? Look, systemically, the whole thing is broken dramatically. We're doing it wrong. We're creating consistently bad results, shaking our heads and wondering what's going on. It's not a secret. Most companies, most sales leaders are just unwilling to do what it takes to right the ship, to do it differently. But you can. And one of the things that I talk about a lot on Sales Untraining is I am a big proponent, a big believer in practice. It's amazing how every athlete out there knows they've got to train and practice, and do specific types of training to get better in their specific sport. But in the business world, Kelly, it's not the same thing. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. We just don't like it. It's too much trouble, and it's typically caused by salespeople. Let me just mention the word role play. Guys, we're going to do some role play. All right, we're going to practice some call openings or making that first call or doing a presentation, or we're going to run through presentations on a particular piece of equipment that we sell, and people will run. No, don't have time. No can do. Listen, this is, nobody likes doing this. Goodness, it's awful. And you would think the end of the world had come. And here's what they'll say. Listen carefully. They'll do things in role play and then say, I would never do that in the real world. Yes, they would. Trust me. That is personal experience multiplied many, many times over. That's why you practice, because you mess it up and then you go again and you mess it up, but you do it 3, 4, 5 times. You clean it up, you get it right, and then your brain knows how to react to specific scenarios. Human beings psychologically can get thrown for a loop. And when they do, when they get thrown out of step in a presentation, they will automatically resort to what they've always done, even if it's awful. By the way, you've seen this. Have you seen the kids in summer that go around and sell magazines and things like that, and they knock on the door, and you go to the door, and they start their pitch like rapid fire. I'm so-and-so, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and you can't get a word in edgewise because they've got to get that whole memorized pitch out. And I've sat through 2 or 3 minutes to go, hang on, stop for a second. I have a quick question for you. And then I'd ask them, I'm not trying to trip them up. I just ask a question, and they look at me like a deer in the headlights. And I've actually had kids start over. Same pitch, same cadence, same everything. I've also seen them go, and they don't know what to do next. You're saying, well, my salespeople would never do that. Bet you money. Happens. It's not a criticism. It's an observation. This is the kind of thing that happens when you don't practice, and you never know it's going on until you make calls with your salespeople. Folks, I have seen absolutely amazing things happen in sales calls. The kind where you go, I'm sorry, what? Yeah. What was that? Where did that come from? Just the most bizarre things imaginable. You never know. And the salespeople come back, and the first thing they tell you is their impressions, which are often quite biased. For example, they go in and they start a presentation. They do it poorly. They feature dump. They talk. They don't ask any good questions, and the customer doesn't get any words in edgewise. And then they ask the price. They give the price, and the customer says, you guessed it, well, that's ridiculous. Your price is too high. Well, listen, we'll be competitive. We'll work on it. Just give me a chance. And then they come back and tell you, Mr. or Ms. Sales Manager, listen, our prices are too high. That's the 3rd time I've heard that this week. You don't say. Now, what do? Take their words for it? If you do, you have a problem. You go up to upper management and say, hey, listen, it's commonly reported among our salespeople, our prices are too high. I'm automatically going to be skeptical. Automatically. I won't go through the whole rationale, but it just does not make any sense logically that your prices are consistently too high. Are there exceptions? Of course, but let's not base this on exceptions. Let's base it on the real world. Work with your reps. Pre-call preparation, in-call strategy, how are we going to handle it? Post-call, coach them up, help them get better, help them learn something specifically. Last thing you really need to do, make sure that your salespeople understand that in any call, one of their primary objectives is to schedule the next call. No, once you start to do that, the appointment book starts to fill up, because I'm going to ask a question at the end is, hey, we've discussed a lot of really good things and you've given me a bunch of great ideas. What I'd like to do is go back and put my head around a couple of things and give you a look at some things I think could really make a difference in what you're doing. Does it make sense to do that? Yeah, sure. Hey, do you have your calendar in front of you? And I have them pull out their calendar. I go, listen, what looks good next week? Thursday morning? Fantastic. I schedule it. I send them a calendar invite. And when I get back to the office, I send them a follow-up email. Enjoyed the call. Really looking forward to our next conversation. I'll see you on Thursday, at whatever time. What happens alternatively is your people get ghosted a lot. They go in, they think they've got a good call, they leave, they come out, they even fill out their call report or their CRM and talk about how wonderful it was, and then they report several weeks later that they've made 8 calls and nobody's responding and nobody's getting back to them. You know why? They weren't interested to begin with. But you don't know that because you're not in the call with them. Does that make sense? It's something that great sales leaders do, just like great coaches do. They know how the team plays because they watch the game and they rewatch the film over and over again. Hey, I hope it makes a difference. Hope you got something out of this today, and I'll see you next time on Sales Untraining.
Sales Untraining is a production of Business Locker Room and Pod About It Productions. Music and editing by Doug Branson. To get more Kelly, visit bizlockerroom.com.